Rear sets. Alright, so before we start talking about the rear sets, I wanted to do a little recap of what has happened since my last video, which I think it's about 8 months now. Late spring, summer, and early fall, my work schedule just got insane, and it didn't leave me much time to play, let alone do videos. So I think I left it. The bike, the last video was new throttle cables, clutch cable, but I had problems with the carburetor that kept leaking fuel from the overflow valve. I ended up taking the carb bank off the engine, and I ended up polishing all four valve seats. They were actually quite nasty. I thought I had cleaned them. I did clean them, but I didn't do it. I didn't do it right. So I'm glad I took them off and polished the hell out of it, and I put it back together. And 800 miles later, carbs are still working perfectly. So I did put some miles on the bike throughout the summer, you know, a day here, a day there, when I had some time while I was home and there were no, you know, house or family stuff to do. And 800 miles later, I noticed that with the new riding position on the bike, since I lower the handlebars, yet the pedals, the foot pegs, are in the original position, which are basically keeping my legs in a 90-degree angle straight down, and now I'm leaning forward. My hips, especially my left hip, start hurting after maybe an hour of riding. It's a little sore. So I figure I can put rear sets on the bike. Unfortunately, to install rear sets on a 1980 CB750 Custom is not as straightforward as with other models. I've done a lot of research, and it's quite easy and basically a bolt-on system on earlier models and other models. So, you know, early mid 70s, 350, 450, 550, 650, even the 750s, the early 750s. Everybody out there, they make rear sets for them, and what they do, they basically hang them where the passenger pegs, foot pegs are. They take those off, they put the rear pegs, rear sets, and they're good to go. And with the 1980, if you do that, at least with my height and my leg length, it feels like my legs are way behind me, you know, so it feels like I'm laying on the bike, so it's not comfortable, not very safe either. There were no brackets that you can put on the bike, so I've been debating, you know, what to do and how to do it if I end up going that route. So I'm going to hold it there. I'm going to go show you the bike, what it looks like, and then come back and talk about the rear sets. Okay, so here she is in all her glory. It's been a great ride over the summer. It's actually a really fun bike to ride. Engine is just working perfectly. The carburetor so far, I need to knock on wood, they haven't given me any issues whatsoever. So a few things, new things aside from the where we left off. The two cables, the throttle cables and clutch cables are new. All the handlebars and levers are new as well. I changed the grips, so these are a little longer, bringing the switches further up on the handlebars. So now I have full. I end up with a little gap here on the clearance between the tank and the handlebars. So actually, it works better. What else? Yes, new tires. I got some Lasertec, and what a difference! Oh my goodness! I knew the other tires, the older tires. I mean, they were quite old and worn, but it's just night and day. The way the motorcycle feels. So back to the rear sets. So I have here the brake lever and the brake pedal and the peg. So the foot peg on this side goes right here, and the passenger peg goes way back here. So when I put my feet on the passenger pegs, my legs are just bent way back, and I'm kind of leaning on the tank, so it's not safe nor very comfortable. So the perfect place, having this peg sitting out here and the passenger peg sitting over here, right about here, here's the sweet spot for it. Now, as you see, here's the brake shaft, so I don't have much distance between them. But if I were to put my peg right here, that for me is just the perfect place for it, and make my legs have a just awesome, perfect angle. The same way on this side. The foot peg goes right here, and the passenger peg goes right here. So the sweet spot is right about here. So looking online, no one makes either a rear set for a 1980 or brackets that you can put here so you can hang your rear sets. So that was what I've been playing with for the past month, trying to decide, well, can I make my own brackets and use rear sets for a 750, an older 750. So now let's go back in the shed. So here's where it gets interesting and fun. So obviously there's nothing out there for 1980 750s. So if I wanted to hang a rear set that would actually fit me, I had to come up with a way of hanging them. So I ended up I started playing with cardboard and drawing some diagrams and taking measurements and drawing some brackets that could work. I just needed a space of metal where I could hang the rear sets. So this one, this was my first drawing of a bracket that I could use on the shifter side my left side, and this one will be on my brake side. And once I felt somewhat confident that this could be a good way to go, I cut them in metal. Here they are. So I kept working with them, you know, kept moving the holes a little, you know, moving them to place them obviously where they needed to be, since I don't have, you know, professional tools to measure the angle and you know, the right spot for the holes. So it was a lot of trial and error. But I ended up with these ones, and I was able to bolt them on the bike, and they worked. With this one, ended up being a hole, a little bigger actually, a little bigger hole for the access port, basically, for the bolt holding the swing arm. So no need to pull the bracket off to have access to it. So kept thinking with the idea, well, maybe this is something that I could do, and I kept playing with it. And so I took the drawings to the local shop, and I ended up with this two 6061 aluminum brackets. Here's the access port for the swing arm bolts. This one is the hole that's going to go where the brake shaft comes out of, so it just sits unobstructed. And this will give me a platform basically for me to, if this is for instance the side, the brake side. So it goes kind of like this. I'm using, this would be the rear foot peg bolt, and these two are two of the bolts that sit on the frame. So those are my attachment points. Here, this one is where the brake shaft comes out, and it's going to be sitting on it, and it gives me this area to basically mount the pedal. The same thing with the left side. I have basically this area to find the sweet spot to hang, to bolt the other rear set. Now, these two rear sets, these two rear sets are made for an older, I think it's a 77, 78 CB750. So the rods and the link rods are cut and made for that bike. Now, since I'm not hanging these ones on the passenger foot peg, where the passenger foot peg used to be, the rods are going to be longer than what I need. So once I'm hanging the brackets up there and find the spot where I want to have the rear sets on, now I'm going to have to measure how much I'm going to have to cut these rods so that will fit the bike. And that's where we are right now, with these two brackets. There are two bolts, engine mount bolts. There's 12 mil and this 10 mil that need to be changed. The 12 mil, this one goes at the bottom of the engine, and the engine is hanging on it, and at the same time the foot pegs are also hanging on each end, and each foot peg has a spacer. Actually, in total, I think it's almost 50 millimeters of spacer, adding the left and the right. That now I'm not going to need. And this bracket uses this bolt as an attachment point. It's on the left side, but on the other side I have nothing. So what I need to do is I can use this same bolt, but I'm going to end up with about this much of extra bolt that I don't need. So I don't think it's going to look so good. And I've been looking everywhere, online and every store here, every shop in Seattle, and I can't find a bolt with a 12 mil in diameter bolt, but only this short. So what I just did today, I found a used one on eBay, just like this one, that if I don't find a bolt here in one of the stores in Seattle or online, I'll be cutting the one that I'm getting from eBay right now. I'll cut it to the length that I need and thread it and use that as my bolt. I don't want to cut the one that I have because I want to keep the pieces that I don't use on all these remods, on all these mods that I'm doing to the bike. I don't want to start chopping them because I want to have the option of one day, if I want to bring the motorcycle back to its original state, I have all the pieces and I just put them back together. And this is the top mount of the engine. It's on the rear. And this one needs to be longer because this bolt is used on this one. So now I need to add, the 5 millimeters or whatever that is, that it's been used on this side now. Now I'm short. So I found a bolt. It's not a metric bolt, but I figure it doesn't matter as long as it's same diameter, but it's a little bit longer. And I used a new nut, obviously, on it, and I found it. So this one is coming as well. So I won't, obviously, I'll save the original one. But that's it. So oh, the other thing that I bought on eBay were a spare shifter and a spare brake pedal, because these are the ones that I'm going to chop up to use as attachment points on the rods here, because of course Honda in the 70s models changed the diameter of the shifter shaft and the brake shaft. So since these are made for the 70s, these attachments don't work on my bike. My bike uses a smaller brake shaft and a bigger shift shaft. So instead of chopping the ones that I have on the bike, I bought spare ones, and I'll be doing the same thing as those guys did. Basically, I'll cut it off, use the attachment point, and add a little piece of metal, weld it here to the appropriate length that I need, and so I can save my brake pedal. And the same thing I'll be doing with the shifter, and I'll be saving my my shifter as well, in case I want to put them back together. So that's what's going on with the bike right now. As soon as I get the bolts that I ordered, I'll start working on it and see if everything fits. Actually, as of right now, the brackets, I tried them on and they fit perfectly. So I want to get everything up, tighten, find the spot for the rear sets, drill the hole, put them there, get everything working, and then take everything apart. I already have a shop here a few blocks from my house where I can take these ones and get them powder coated, put a powder coat on them, black. So I'm hoping that will help blend the brackets on the bike and kind of make them, invisible. So that's it. It's been an awesome bike. I love it. And it's just clicking and working as it used to be. I guess when it was made in the 80s. Actually, there's one thing that I've noticed that that's the next project or problem to solve. I've noticed when I ride, when I'm just going straight, I'm putting more pressure on my left handlebar to keep the motorcycle straight. It has a tendency to just turn, veer to the right. It's not sharp, but it's not tracking straight. I was waiting until the new tires will be put on the bike. Maybe that would help, and it didn't. I checked all the nuts and bolts and attachments up alongside the forks. Everything is the way it should be. So I'm thinking next I'm gonna go inside the forks. I did shorten them, and I put progressive springs in them. So next I think I'm just gonna take them apart, make sure that all the pieces are there in both forks, and the spacers that I have, they are the same length. Maybe that's what's making the bike not track straight. What it's weird is holding the bike and pushing on the handlebars down. I can see the fender move towards the right a little bit. The wheel, everything stays straight, yet the fender, the mud guard, it has a little rotation, slight rotation to the right, which I didn't notice before. So aside from that, it's a perfect bike, but that would be something to dig my teeth into after the rear set project. That's it, and now I'm back on, and yeah, next video will be once I get the bolts and see if everything matches and works when we hang it on the bike. All right, take good care, happy new year, and we'll see you soon. All right, bye bye.